Hey y'all, I'm Lexi. So I am a professional finisher and tonight we are gonna do a hanging sign. I'm gonna go over corners, how to cut your mat board, your batting, and to do your cording, all of that. So I am not a professional content creator, so please bear with me if this is like a little awkward. We are gonna work through that together and hopefully get better and better as these classes go on. So I've got it going on Zoom right here too, so if you see me looking down, please just know we got multiple cameras going right now. So I am working on this canvas right here that I'm gonna turn into a hanging sign, and hopefully you have something that you are working on that is similar, maybe in size, or you just wanna watch this to have it kind of in your arsenal. That's awesome too. So to get started, I'm gonna talk about the different things we need. So you need your canvas. You are gonna need 2 pieces of mat board that I will put in my Amazon storefront if you don't already have some. This is the hard like centerpiece of any hanging sign or ornament. You are also gonna need batting, which is quilting batting. It looks like this. I am gonna still have to cut some for this piece. That's why I am frantically looking around. Excuse me, I thought that I had it out already and I don't, but that's okay. You are gonna need some DMC thread in whatever color that you are gonna do your cording. You're gonna need some invisible thread. You will need a needle, you're gonna need some scissors, a lattice if you want to make your cording that way, or if you wanna do it by hand, that is awesome too. We will talk about different options as we kind of get to that point. Let's see, what else, some other things. These little clips, they come off Amazon. They're from Amazon. I will put that in my Amazon storefront also. I think like 90% of the things that I use come from Amazon. So you can get almost everything there. You're also gonna need your backing fabric. A lot of people like to get theirs embroidered. My client for this one did get hers embroidered, so I'm gonna make sure that I get it as centered as humanly possible when we get to that point too. So I think that is all of like the super basic stuff that you're gonna need. So let's get started. First, you are gonna need your canvas, some fabric scissors. So I have different scissors that I use for all of my different pieces. So I've got my fabric scissors that I use on my canvas and on fabric, obviously. I have my super old heavy duty kitchen scissors that I use for cutting my mat board when I'm not using my Cricut. And then I also have these little thread snippers that help with like the DMC and cording and stuff, and they help make it a clean edge so it doesn't just like fray. So we're gonna first cut off our canvas. So I know that that can be kind of daunting, but so I will always say that it is easier to start bigger and then work your way down. Because you can't regrow canvas, but you can always cut some of it back. So I'm gonna cut all my canvas here. And I did have this blocked for a while, but because of the like age of the canvas, it's still trying to like go back a little bit, so I will have to kind of stretch and manipulate it, but that is not gonna be too big of an issue. Okay, wonderful, so I'm gonna do that. And then I'm gonna toss these in my little garbage can here. So for clean corners, I have found that anything with a square or rectangle, you are gonna want to fold over this edge to the point there. And so we're gonna do that on all 4 sides. And I'm gonna try to hold up and show as much as I can up here. I am working on getting one of those overhang camera things. So you guys can just watch my hands at one point and it's not like, here's my face and here's the canvas. So, so once you have all those corners folded in, I'm gonna fold those as best as I can. Newer canvases are gonna hold the shape just a tiny bit more, whereas the older one tries to like poop back out on its own. And then I'm gonna fold it in just like if I were wrapping a gift or like using wrapping paper. Folding that in and down. About half or like one of that last stitch is gonna be rolled over. So it almost looks like a binding stitch, but not quite. So it's gonna be like that. And we are gonna do that on all 4 sides. Also, I'm so sorry, I have my baby monitor here, so if you hear some babbling in the background, that is from my 2- and 3-year-old who are in bed but not quite asleep yet. So. And we are gonna go back and we're gonna lace everything too. So if it's trying to come up or it's just a little bit loose, that's okay right now because we are just like kind of getting some folds going so it kind of behaves a little better, you know, so it's gonna do what we want it to. So then you should have, your canvas should look something like this, right? Where you are seeing kind of like what that final shape that you want is gonna look like. So at that point, you're gonna cut your mat board. What I do is when I first have my sheet, I did this preemptively before I was recording this, so I apologize. So I will lay this out on a piece of mat board, like a full size that I haven't cut yet, and take a pen and literally do little dots in the mesh to show like where it is, and then I'll cut that out. So I kind of do like a connect the dots sort of situation, and then I cut it out. And then, so you're gonna need 2 pieces of that in the same size. One of them is gonna be with your back fabric, and one of them is gonna go on the inside of your front piece with the canvas. So the front side piece, you're gonna wanna cut a little bit smaller because it is gonna have the batting with it. And so you wanna make sure that you're taking into account how much batting there's gonna be and the rollover of all of that too. So this one ends up being a little bit smaller than this, if you can, that's white and white so you can't tell, but this one's smaller, I promise. And then I'm also gonna grab some batting quickly to cut. I may need to get more out actually. So I use, for hanging signs, this is just a weird old piece that I will end up using. I fold it over so I'm getting at least 2 per one cut. And then sometimes I'll do 3, but I think we're just gonna do 2 for this one. So then for that, literally just use any sort of pen, mark on your batting. So I just trace the mat board onto the batting, and then we are gonna cut that out. Okay, and so this was doubled up, so it is like 2 pieces for the length that I need. And we're gonna put that into the canvas first. So we're gonna go canvas, batting, mat board, and make like a little sandwich for this one side. So we're gonna do that. And then you wanna make sure that your batting is lined up with the canvas as close as possible. And then put your mat board in, and then we are gonna fold all of that canvas back the way that we did the first time. And when I'm doing that now, I am gonna use my little clips and clip it down as I go. Also, again, I apologize for the like having to be up here and then working down here. Did not anticipate that people wanted to watch classes, and so I had not looked into doing any sort of thing for that. So if you can see, when I roll this over, the last like row of stitches isn't quite over the mat board. That's why it's showing right there. So I'm gonna cut my mat board just a little bit more because we do wanna make sure we have that little bit of rollover. And be careful not to cut your batting or your canvas when you're doing that. That's just something that I'm kind of used to doing over time. So if you're not feeling super confident in that, just take it out and take the extra, minute or minute and a half to make sure that you get it the right size so you're not hurting the canvas at all, because that would be a super bummer to mess up a canvas while you were just cutting some mat board. Okay, so at this point, this is how this is looking, where you can see the, like a little bit, like half maybe of that last row folded over, and then the back is gonna look something like this right now at this point. And I am going to lace the back of my canvas. I will say that I have found there is a huge correlation between how good a canvas ends up looking and how tight the lacing is on the inside. So for lacing, I'm gonna use the same needle that I used when I stitched the canvas, like your embroidery needle. I don't know if they're actually called embroidery needles. I think I made that up. And I am gonna use DMC from another project that I still have laying around. It's not quite long enough to be used for cording anymore. So I'm gonna use this for the lacing. So you're gonna wanna just thread your needle per usual. If I could do that, that would be super cool. Okay, and then put just a regular old knot at the other end. And then what I do is I'm gonna first do like 1 or 2 stitches, and then I'm gonna show you guys. So I start up in the corners where it is overlapping just a little bit. And it tends to be just a little bit thicker. You can iron this if you need to. I would put like a paper towel or something in between it. I normally use like a little cotton dish towel that's totally white, and if I need to iron canvas, because you don't want to melt the plastic, right? Because I don't even know if it's plastic. It does get melty though, so you don't want to melt it. But you can definitely hit it with a little bit of heat, and that's gonna press it down. So I am gonna sew right here and here. And be careful that you don't stab yourself like I just did a moment ago, because nobody wants that. Okay, so I am gonna start lacing through here. I'm gonna go this way, and I will keep showing you as I go. Also, I apologize for my focus face. I realize that it is not the most pleasant. Okay, so I have just a few going this way, and now I'm gonna start going across here. And I'm gonna show you guys all of it like as I keep doing each little section, but here we go. And somebody in last night's class asked when lacing how many rows you go from the like stitched part of the canvas. And I told her I was like at as close as I can normally without touching it and leaving at least a row. So like sometimes I'm in like the 2-3 zone, sometimes I'm in like the 4. It kind of depends on how big of a piece it is. And so I don't know if that makes total sense, but I'm gonna show you guys here in a second and hope that clears that random little babble up. Also, depending on how old your canvas is, you can, I mean, as long as one hand is holding it, you could pull your DMC pretty tautly, and that's gonna help too because it's gonna be pulling your canvas around the mat board. And so one of the things that we talk about kind of as finishers is that you can tell the difference between professional and the people who just kind of do it for fun, based on how much canvas you see when you have a finished product, right? Because the goal is you don't want to see any of the extra canvas. You just want to see the stitched work. And so getting good at lacing is a solid step in that direction. Okay. All right, so I just kind of did a little zigzag up that whole back side now, and I am gonna do this corner here now, which you don't have to do this method at all. Do whatever you want to do as long as you're trying to get it as tight as possible. Like I said, the tighter your lacing is, the better everything is going to look in the long run. Okay. One more right there. Okay. So then I did the same thing with that corner that I did over here. And now I am going to go across and do this corner down here. So, and another thing that I struggled with when I first started finishing, even for myself and family, which I will share with you guys, was I didn't have long enough like DMC for lacing. So if that ever happens to you, you can just literally tie two pieces together and keep going, and you're still gonna have the same effect. Just make sure that that like knot and everything is as taut as you can make it. Okay, so I'm gonna come down to this corner. And if anyone ever has any questions at all, you are welcome to like DM me whenever. I am an open book. I prefer the no gatekeeping to this sort of thing. It is an absolute wonderful hobby, and everybody should have access to it, whether or not, you know, they want to use a finisher, because we can be expensive, and I know that. And so why not teach everybody, you know, what I can? That's kind of the way I think about it. Okay, so I just ran out of thread there, kind of like I talked about, but I'm actually pretty happy with how tight this is for me right now. So I'm gonna leave this little guy out, or try to knot him to a surrounding friend really quick. Okay, so I was able to make a little knot and kind of tie that off. So now my lacing is good. If you want it to be more, like more lacing, you can do more. This is kind of the bare minimum, but for this particular sign, I know this is all that I need. But that comes with time, and you do as much or as little as you need to. And so pieces before we can match them together. So I have my back side of mat board. I am gonna make sure that this is gonna look good, and then see, it does not once it is. Oh goodness, look at that. So it is gonna be a little bit too big. So I am gonna trim this bad boy up to fit it just a little bit better, because we want it to look as good as possible. Draw a line, then cut. Actually, you know what? We will just do that, because that is the smarter way to go. All right, so I am gonna cut this now, a little bit more, trying to get it down the correct size. So this should now, yes, perfect, okay. So you shouldn't really be able to see it, maybe just the tiniest bit will be okay though. So it's gonna be the back side. So I'm gonna clean up just a tiny bit because I will get stuff everywhere. All right, and I'm gonna take my batting and I'm gonna do the same as I did with the front side, where I'm just gonna put it down and I'm gonna trace it and see if I can get two sides out of this. I am gonna put two sides with this one. I've decided that I want it to be just a little on the puffier side. Anytime that somebody has a embroidery or anything on a piece, I try to make it just a little bit poofier. But that's totally up to your preference too, whether you want something to be more poofy or less poofy, totally up to you. So, all right. And then we are gonna cut that out. And I have my batting and my mat board. I am gonna get out my fabric. Whatever you are using, I'm using this. She sent me a super long piece. You do not need this long of a piece at all. When you go to your fabric store or whatever, you really only need about 2 by 2 inches more than whatever size canvas you're working with, if that makes sense. And it's always easier too to also, like I said earlier, you cannot go back and regrow your fabric or your canvas, so it's always easier to start bigger and then work smaller. It's like the measure twice, cut once thing. So I'm gonna try to get this as absolutely as straight as possible. She did mention in a note that it was a little off kilter and to try to see what I could do for it. So. So I also recommend, if you have a window, everyone has windows, so you definitely have one, holding it up to, light and stuff so you can see your mat board and everything through the fabric if you're, concerned about it being super straight. Just because I do want to make sure that it's perfect, especially since this is for a client. Yeah, that is pretty good there. Okay, so now I'm gonna cut my extra fabric. Just a little big, but that'll be okay. So once we have our fabric cut, I am gonna start doing the lacing of this the same way that we do our canvas. So I'm gonna fold all of my corners in, just like we did the first time. And then, so I don't know, I'm gonna try to hold this up and show you guys this way, but I also need to make sure that I have my embroidery centered. So I'm not sure if I can. Okay, so I am gonna clip it just on one side while I'm working on the other, so I can make sure that it is staying put, because sometimes it will shift. So we're gonna take that top corner and fold it down over, and then do that on both sides. So it's kind of like folding the corners of your wrapping paper. That is how I tried to explain it to people. and then pull that first flap over. So it should look something like that. And then I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. And I'm gonna trim that fabric just a tiny bit more. Alright. So I'm gonna go there, we're gonna trim here. Okay. And then I'm gonna do the same thing where I kind of dog ear it on both sides. And then fold that down and clip it. So now we look like this, and then I'm gonna fold down these top flaps also. So it's kind of creating like a little bit of like an envelope. Also, I definitely recommend getting the like 100 pack of these instead of like the 30. The 30 pack I think is $4, and then the like 100 pack is $9. I have ones like randomly pop and break and stuff on me, so I definitely recommend getting just a few more, just for the heck of it, because I'm down to like maybe 15 of these bad boys now. So okay, so now we look like this. Our corners aren't super, well, mine aren't super perfect, yours might be at this point, but that's okay because I'm going to go over that with cording. But so I am happy with this and how this looks right now. So I am going to get my DMC and I'm going to thread the back of that. So. Also, I do apologize for the length of this video. It is supposed to be a like full class rather than just a quick tutorial. I am gonna make some quick tutorial videos and try to post those also, where, you know, it'll just be like one thing super fast. But for today, because this is a class, it is gonna be a longer video. So I apologize for that. Back down. All right, so I'm lacing up the back side of my canvas. The way that I fold the corners down is kind of makes it look like an envelope, which I find helps give it more stability. And when you are lacing cording to it, it helps with everything kind of in the long run there. So. But I lace up the fabric side the same way that I do my canvas side. I was saying earlier that the correlation between having a like tight lacing on the like inside of your canvas has a direct correlation to how great your canvas is gonna look as a finished product. Because you need all your fabric and canvas and everything to be as tight as possible. And that is one of the little minor differences between professional finishers and kind of the people who just do it for friends and family. So I'm going to show this to both cameras in a second. Okay, so I am going around and then kind of closing both corners together for how I am doing this lacing. And I'm gonna go across the entire thing and then I will zigzag too, which I will show you also. But so I don't use any glue in my canvases. Some finishers do, some people who do it like recreationally do. You do whatever is best for you. Some finishers think that glue is a curse word. I happen to be one of them, but that doesn't mean that it's not okay for people who need it, or some like super irregular shapes and stuff like that. It's definitely useful. I have had to rescue a canvas or two with it. So it definitely serves a purpose at some point. So I have all four sides and now I'm gonna go across it. So some people may need to do a few more to keep it all tight. I'm pretty happy with this actually. And DMC is nice too because you can really kind of pull on it without it breaking. As long as you are keeping the rest of your canvas and everything stable, you can really yank on it and it's not gonna pop on you, which is nice. And again, just using regular DMC floss. So I talked about earlier, I don't have one of those like above cameras as of yet. So the recording camera is a little bit more like spot on where they can see everything at my desk. So that's what the inside's gonna look like. And then I will literally just sandwich these two together and we are gonna get sewing. I'm gonna make sure that the canvas and the embroidery are both going the same direction because that would be really silly to do upside down and then have to redo it. But I have done that a time or two before. And I'm sorry, my husband is a police officer and so every time I get a notification, my heart like beats out of my chest a little bit because I just want to make sure that everything's okay and he is on shift. So all right, so my invisible thread, which I will put on my Amazon storefront for everybody. You're also going to need a curved needle, which that's from yesterday. They sell them curved, or if you are like me, you can just get a straight needle and then end up bending it kind of how to your fingers. That's what I do, and it works better for me than, excuse me, the pre-curved ones. So I make my invisible thread into a big giant loop and double it up, mostly because that way, you know, it's stronger, and that way between your canvas and the backside, everything is going to have like a nice strong hold on it too. Where is this? Goodness gracious, I didn't realize I made that so long. You know, you want to have a good like seal, and so you're going to need to have the strength, and this way you're giving it that when you kind of like double it up. So invisible thread can be super daunting and it can get tangled super fast, so always be mindful of that too, because nothing is worse than having a giant knot that you cannot work through. So when I am marrying the two together, I always start on one of these sides. That way I leave the top part open for putting in the sides of the cording to make the like cording and border and everything with. And so that is where I'm gonna begin over here. And so I do a running whip stitch, which is just, it's super easy. It's literally just the over and under rather than going through and everything. Depending on what kind of stitch you use for the border, I find that this one's the easiest, but if you had something like a satin stitch where it is a little fancier and it's easier to pull stitches, that way you want to do something where you're just going back in and through. And this, I don't know if I don't think I pulled that thread, but I have a thread that's pulled here. I'll go back and fix that later. Okay, so I'm gonna do this side really quick. And if you have any questions at all about anything, please do not hesitate to ask. And so when you are lacing this up, you want to make sure that your invisible thread isn't getting caught on any of the corners. A lot of finishers will clip their two sides together. Personal preference for me, I don't like to do that just because I find that my invisible thread will get stuck every which way. And then I get more frustrated with that than I do if I'm just sitting here pulling it one side. So I just hold it as tight as I can together. And that's what works best for me. But again, do what absolutely works best for you, because that is ultimately what, you know, all this is about, is what's going to bring you joy rather than, you know, kind of the social norm of it or whatever. It is definitely strange though, from going from like just being a finisher and like stitching at home all the time to trying to teach classes and like show people how to do it and like record yourself. It's definitely a very like odd difference to, okay, I'm getting a little bit of a knot there. And I did have a lot of ladies yesterday ask me if I would put all of this stuff in my Amazon storefront and then like link it too. So I will do that just so it is all in one place rather than trying to like figure it out all on your own. Cause I know there's tons of different like mat board and you know, you wanna make sure that it's something that's acid free, and I'm having a huge knot with my invisible thread really quick. Invisible thread too, you can pull a decent amount, but oh goodness. It's definitely not as strong as like fishing line or anything, which I still don't recommend using fishing line. Invisible thread's like the way to go because it's not gonna make big holes in your fabric or in your canvas. But at the same time, you can pull on it, but you have to be careful because sometimes it will snap. And if that happens, so like if you doubled up your string and it snaps, you can unravel like a few of your stitches and then use the two of them to tie a knot, which will be a lot easier than trying to do it with just one string. So I'm going across the bottom now. Still getting tons of knots because my invisible string hates me. I don't know if you guys can see that from the cameras or not, but it's super fun for me here. There we go. All right, so once I sew around the 3 sides, I leave this top one open and then I am gonna make my cording. At this point, I have a big, long piece of invisible thread still attached with my needle that I'm gonna leave on there and let that just hang. So I need to decide on what colors I want for my cording. Super fun, giant bag of DMC. So I go around the canvas loosely to decide how long I need my thread to be. So I will go all the way across, and so it like makes like a full loop. And then I will also pick enough to do the hanger with it too. So it's the whole square. And then, so I'm doing 3, so I'm gonna do 5, 5, and 6. I've got 2 regular DMCs and I think 1 is pearls. So I'm gonna do, I think I'm gonna do 6 of this one because I want the yellow to be a little more predominant. It's 4. Okay, and that's gonna make 6, and that's all, the entire skein, so that is fine. I like to make little knots at the end of it. I try on like both ends, and I try to get it as close to the end as I can so I'm not like wasting thread. But at the same time, I'm gonna use a lattice, and so I wanna make sure that they are secure. So I'm gonna use this now as my, just because I know that this is a whole skein. And no one wants to play thread roulette. And I will say, don't buy DMC on Amazon unless that is your only option. Hobby Lobby sells it for like $1 a skein. But if your Hobby Lobby is an older Hobby Lobby, then there's a chance that they have not changed out their stickers. And you can get it for 53 cents a skein still. And that's like what I guess it used to be sold for until it became popular again. And they only recently changed the sticker price. But if you take a picture of it when you go up to the register, they will honor it. And so the nice ladies in my Hobby Lobby always honor the 53 cents per skein. So, and then Michaels will let you use coupons for it too if you sign up online. Okay. Sorry, I got a baby moving. So I'm gonna, again, knot these two ends, and then I'm gonna clip off that one. And then I'm gonna make the third color here, and just make sure that these are at least somewhat close. So there's about maybe 2-3 inch difference there. That's gonna be okay, but I am gonna try to get my next one to match the yellow a little better and kind of make up for that. So yesterday someone taught me the cool trick with the regular embroidery floss, that if you hold the little label at the top when you're pulling out the bottom one, it doesn't get all tangled up. And I found that she was totally right, but the pearl cotton, you cannot do that, unfortunately. So here I am trying to not get this one super tangly. Okay. So it's gonna be about that long. And I will say too, like sometimes the cording, like though it has that little formula or whatever, sometimes I just kind of go off vibes too. Like if I feel like it needs to be a little thicker with one color, I'll make it a little bit thicker just if I want that one to be a little more predominant, that sort of thing. So I think I'm gonna do just one more with that. There we go. All right, so I'm gonna take this and tie these ends. So the most important thing when making cording is however tight your first twist is. So with cording, you twist all of it one direction first, all the colors. So no matter how many colors you have, whether it's you know, 2 or 3, you want to make sure that you always go your first direction. So I always twist mine to the right first, and then I twist mine to the left. I am attaching them with the same clips that I used earlier to my outgoing mailbox, because that is going to be heavy enough that it's going to hold it taut for me while I twist. It's really gross, I'm sorry. While I twist all this. So all right, so then I have my 3 colors. I'm gonna put them into my lattice, and I will put this on the Amazon storefront also. You can definitely do it by hand. Just make sure that that first twist is tight enough that it is trying to coil in on itself. Oh, sweet boy, it's okay, buddy. Oh, bud. There you go, you're gonna be okay, bud. Sorry, crying baby. So, okay, so I'm gonna go in the first direction. And so you want it to be tight enough that it'll coil in on itself when you give it that slack. That's how you know if your cording is tight enough. So I'm gonna try to pull it all back out a little bit, and then go in the second direction. And then again, the same thing, that if it's, oh, we're gonna go a little tighter. No, Tommy, it's okay, buddy. You're laying back down. Yeah, where it's gonna coil in on itself, that's how you know that your tension is good. So, oh. We've been dealing with night terrors. He settles in a second, I promise. I'm not just letting my child sit up there and scream to death, but if I go in, I'll be in there all night.
Night terrors are so bad.
Yeah, he wakes up and he finds a stuffed animal, and then he'll tuck himself back in. And we found that that's the best way to let him just kind of deal with it. Otherwise, if I go in, he wants mommy to sleep there and all those things. So I apologize for the crying in the background.
You can't hear it on this video.
Oh, okay, good. Whew. I'm not sure if the big one can either, but we'll at least apologize formally to everybody in case they can hear it. It's okay, bud. We got little, I don't know if you can see, split screen action, so I got both of them up there. But it's okay. All right, so once my cording is done, I'm gonna tuck it in the first side with a pen, if I can find just a regular like ballpoint pen. And I'm gonna stuff it down into that corner where I last stitched. So I have, and so sometimes when you stuff it in there, it's gonna make it kind of open back up again. So you wanna pull your invisible thread to make sure that it is as taut as possible. Sometimes I will even throw a few extra stitches in just to make sure, like pinch it, hold it together, and then stitch that just a little bit more, because that way it closes it up just as much as you can. All right, so then I'm gonna pull the cording as close to that edge as I can without like busting a seam there. And I'm gonna try to do that while being on, this is the hard part on camera, trying to like do it and manipulate where my hands need to be. So at this point I am gonna go around with it, lay it where it needs to go, and I'm gonna try to clip it. Some of my clips are gonna break on me inevitably because when I'm on camera, that's what happens. But it won't do it right now, we'll do it in a couple minutes and just shoot off. It'll be like a rocket ship. Okay. Sweet boy, it's okay, go to sleep. What the hell is that? Okay, so then where it comes back up across, so I am not gonna pin it, but I am gonna just make sure that I'm good there, and then see where, excuse me, I'm so sorry, the top side is, and I'm gonna tuck that in on the far side. So that's what's gonna make the hanger for this. So I'm just gonna tuck that in there, and then I'm gonna start sewing on this side, going down. I will do the across part last. I have a little piece of this. So for the lacing of the cording, I'm gonna do a whole tutorial on this, where I'm gonna do white cording and I'm gonna put DMC in lieu of the invisible thread to show how it like lays the right way. But you're gonna take your invisible thread and you wanna put it in between two of the colors of the twist. And you wanna lay it across, and then you will thread from your backside fabric, underneath your cording, through your canvas. And you wanna make sure that you're getting canvas and not just thread, so you're not pulling anything. And then you kind of pull a little bit taut, and that's gonna lay your cording on your canvas the right way, and you won't be able to see the invisible thread at all, except for like the tiniest little holes. And this is why it's important to have a curved needle too, so you're going through the fabric and the batting, and then the canvas instead of the mat board. But you kind of get in a groove of it. I found that like for this one, so my first lay of the invisible thread went through the white and gold color. So now that's like the two that I'll go through on the entire thing, where I'm going up a level and then just going through those two colors. And so then the invisible thread is on a slant, and you want to make sure that you're holding it taut the whole time too, but that way it's gonna not crush your cording and it's gonna keep it secure to your piece. And if you're also like following the color pattern of the cording, that way too, like it will be fully secure instead of like if you're just kind of guessing. Because nothing's worse than when you get a piece back or something and you like roll your hand over it and then the cording slips off too. You wanna make sure that it is secure along the whole side. Also, I get the worst posture when I am trying to finish things or just stitching in general. So please excuse me as I like slunch over. My husband picks on me because I'm always complaining about my neck pain. And he's like, well, your chin is touching your chest while you're sewing. Maybe that's why. So I'm trying really hard to like sit up tall and try to do that. So I am gonna keep going around this, and then I will be right back to show you this part up on the top. Okay, so this top part, now that I am stitched back up to here, so now it kind of looks like a big clutch with a hanger. So I'm gonna not do my cording for this part. I'm gonna stitch this closed now, because I've got both anchors of my cording in here, that side and this side. So I'm now gonna sew this shut, and then my needle's gonna end up back on this side. So my needle's now over here. I just stitched this across, and then I have these two pieces. The piece that is the farthest away, so it's the piece that literally shoots up from the side, that's the one that I'm gonna put across the top, and I am gonna clip this down. And so that's gonna be what is my hanger. And so I'm gonna now stitch this going back this way, like back up it, to get that part down right now. So I'm gonna do a few stitches on this side, make sure that it's laid down far enough. And then to get my needle back on the fabric side, I'm just gonna stick it through one time, and then I'm gonna do the same thing where I'm going through my 2 pieces of cording and through the canvas and then the backboard, and I'm gonna do that all the way across. And I think I'm gonna need more invisible thread here in a second, so I'm gonna show you guys how I knot that off also. Maybe not, it's gonna be close, we'll see. So, yeah, I'm gonna cut this here just so I can make sure that I have enough. And then, so I've got my 2 pieces of the invisible string now because it was doubled up. So I'm literally gonna take the 2 of those and just knot them. So that way I can make sure that I have enough string. I'm gonna go in with a new piece here in a second. Because it was getting a little different than how I like it. Okay. So when I go, I'm gonna try to find where I cut that thread and knot it off, and then I'm gonna put this one through the canvas side first, but do it like 1 color set lower, so I'm not like missing any part to like lace it. Does that make sense? Okay, so I'm still gonna go in between colors. It's just gonna be 1 set up this time and stitch through there. And then sometimes too, depending on how much string I have left over when I get to like the far side of it, sometimes I'll still like go back down the other way that I came, just to make sure that like everything is on there super tight. And especially if it is a door sign, because what if somebody slams the door or, you know, gets yanked on a little bit, you wanna make sure that it's on there super secure. And so I am gonna so then I'm gonna flip my canvas so I can go through the colors again. And so I'm gonna put it through to the other side so I can make sure, of course I get a knot right there. So I can make sure that I'm still laying it in between 2 colors, because we don't want to crush our cording at all. And so you definitely don't have to go through, like back through if you don't want to. I just like to do it personally, especially for door hangers, because like I said, some people are super rough on their doors, or if you have small children, they think they're like the coolest things in the world to play with and try to flip and slam a door super hard. So it's nice to make sure everything is super secure. All right, so now I am back over here in this corner. I'm gonna cut my thread and tie off a knot. I also always like to make sure that I'm cutting it like far enough away. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but it's a little shorter than like the length of my hand, so I can really tie like a good knot and know that like I've got enough thread tension to be able to pull it and know that it's a, you know, a good tight knot rather than just like having it not be quite as tight, you know. And then you want to cut as close to it as you can without actually cutting it, and then there you have it. So that is how you do a hanging sign and you do the cording. I am going to do the tutorial on cording very soon, where I do all white cording and then the DMC that's colored, so you can see how to lay it in there if you have any questions. If you have any other questions at all, feel free to DM me whenever, and I will talk to you guys soon.